We're a little busy right now. Congressman Byron Donalds joining us on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News. He's been kind of busy. First of all, how are you this morning?
Hey, Drew. How you doing?
I'm okay. We're looking at February 29th. We get an extension of February. So we get an extra day today. So happy birthday to all the leap year babies. They call them leapers. And they say they're happier than the average person. I don't know if you know anybody who's born on a leap year. You know any leap babies?
No, I don't.
Okay, good.
Maybe I've met one or two.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm about as disinterested in that whole conversation as you are, so we can move on because there's some really interesting things that happened yesterday. So Hunter Biden shows up, gives testimony, and here's what gets me. It's like the impeachment, Russia collusion hoax nonsense all over again. You've got Democrats and Republicans hear the same testimony. You have James Comer and others come out and they're talking about what they heard, and others. And then you have the Democrats who are like, oh, this is the nail in the coffin. Did we hear the same guy talking? It's like that's the talking point. They go, oh, yeah, this is it. And they can say whatever they want to say because they have a willing media that's going to allow them to say, their version of this story. So what's your version of the story?
So, look, depositions, first and foremost, are usually pretty dry. So it's basically that person gets an opportunity to state whatever they want to state to the questions, right?
Sure.
I found him to be, deceiving. And the reason why I say that is because there were parts of the deposition where he had complete and total recall of the conversation, the people, all this kind of stuff. And then you ask him something simple like about a message he sent, and he would be like, oh, I don't remember this message. I think I was, he said, people will see it in the transcript.
Right.
And it's probably as much as I can say right now. He would say something like, oh, but I was battling my addiction. So I just can't remember. So, which one is it? You can't play that on both sides.
Right.
And the second thing is, and this goes back to the very core of what the Bidens did, this entire business structure was set up to conceal their money. Now, Drew, I know a lot of business people. You know a lot of business people. Typically, successful business people are not trying to conceal the fact that they're making millions of dollars from the IRS and everybody. Now, don't get me wrong. Nobody wants to just willingly give the IRS money. You follow the law to the best that you can. But if you're a legitimate business person who's dealing with international businesses, you're also not a tax evader in the United States. Yeah. Kind of a small thing. So already there's a credibility issue with there because the man is a tax evader. That is clear now, even by the Department of Justice, who had to take 6 years to indict somebody who they would have indicted anybody else in 6 months. So that's number two. Number three, there's contradictory testimony. So he's in the room telling us one thing, and you have Devin Archer, Eric Schmidt, Tony Bobulinski. They're all saying something different. And so the only people who are sticking to the script, so to speak, are Jim Biden and Hunter Biden. At the end of the day, this entire scheme was set up to insulate and protect Joe Biden. They set it up this way on purpose.
Yeah.
So I think the deposition reflected that. He's still in that mode of, listen, at the end of the day, as long as I protect Pops and Pops is reelected president, I'm going to be good.
Right.
So mission number one, protect the big guy. And I think that's what we heard. That's what I saw. The Democrats took the deposition as, oh, my gosh, Hunter Biden refuted everything. And because Hunter Biden is the most credible individual in the history of the world, then this whole thing is over and it's dead. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
You take the testimony and you compare it to other testimonies to paint the entire picture. It's actually similar to what's happening in Georgia with Fani Willis. Like Fani Willis came in there, she stomped in with her dress. People said it was on backwards. I don't care.
Right.
She stomped in there with her dress. She was like, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. So if you just took her testimony, people would be like, oh, man, this thing might be over. But then when you get all the other testimonies and all the other corroborating evidence, you're like, oh, wait, no, she's lying.
Right.
That's what we're doing here with Hunter Biden. No different.
And it feels to me like the narrative is set that there's no there. Obviously, Newsweek and other publications are already running with the nail in the coffin, nothing to see here. And then I want to play this audio. Did you see the exchange with James Comer and the reporter? where it got really testy yesterday. Did you hear that or see that at all?
I didn't see it, but it wouldn't surprise me. Okay. The reporters are very testy about this topic.
Yeah, I just wanted to play this audio because, and I wanted to make a point after this. So here's James Comer. They have the microphones there, getting comments from people walking by, and there's James Comer walks up, and here you have somebody from the press who's screaming at James Comer, right?
That either as vice president or as president, Joe Biden used his political office in any way to benefit either Hunter or James Biden's business.
We have evidence that Joe Biden met with the Chinese officials.
What specific actions did he take?
We've had several people already testify that.
What action? How is AmeriCorps helped? How is this Chinese business helped by the fact that?
So let me ask you a question. You mentioned AmeriCorps Health. Does anyone in here question whether or not that was influence peddling? Does anyone question that? No.
There's a lot of questions about it, sir, because there was no evidence that Joe Biden did anything.
This is the guy that said, so this guy's yelling at, there's no evidence, there's no evidence. He's like, you got $200,000 from this, and there's no evidence. Can you prove that there's evidence to show a connection? And they keep going back and forth, and this idea that that's the narrative. This guy set it up, no evidence. It's almost like it's Fonnie Willis. The reporter's acting like Fonnie Willis. Like, there's nothing to see here. I don't even know why we're here. And they're just attacking anybody that comes along. And that's what the Democrats are doing as well.
Well, look, the press, and we know this, the press has been basically the Praetorian Guard for the Democrats. It doesn't matter. It's not about Joe Biden. It's about the Democrat Party and about the political agenda. So these repeaters, they're not even reporters. They're just repeaters. These repeaters are going to do everything they can to paint a light that Republicans have no evidence. But that's just simply not true. We wouldn't have gotten this far if there wasn't mountains of evidence. And this is why at the very beginning of this, Drew, and I said this multiple times on your show, we've had voters who say, go ahead and impeach them. Look what they did to Trump. No, we are going to have a real investigation. We're not going to do what Nancy Pelosi did. If everybody goes back to the phone call between Zelensky and President Trump, once the accusation was released, the press was like, oh, yes, absolutely, this is high crimes and misdemeanors. He's impounding funds. It's a violation. We should really consider impeachment. There was never any conversation of, can we actually see the conversation? What did he actually say? What's the actual context? The big media does not do that. It's one of the reasons why their approval ratings are in the toilet, and it's another reason why, in my view, the country is so divided, because you are literally have the same story, and there's two completely different versions that are reported on depending on what you're reading. That's not good. It really serves to be propaganda. Yeah. So we get this a lot. When you start hitting the real meat of something, the press isn't just asking questions trying to figure out the story, who, what, when, where, why, how. They're not doing that. They are actively trying to kill the story.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's
and
like
what you saw there.
It's like with Kristen Welker and the way she treated you on Meet the Press over the weekend, when talking about government shutdowns and shutting down and just kind of going after you on that issue, and pushing and it's not like these aren't investigative reporters or asking questions and they want to get the answer from you. They just want to get the gotcha question in there, and they keep throwing it out. And the reporters do it. The Democrats do it. They're all doing it. They're all willing to. They're all playing on the with the same board. They're all playing the same game, and they're all in communication. They must be, because they all have the same talking points and the way they attack. And I just can't believe. I mean, we're going to hear. We've got. Adam Schiff is the perfect example when you bring up that point and you go back in time and how he lied to people and coming out of the skiff and saying one thing when in the skiff they were talking about something completely different, and nobody was going to be able and there's no pushback from the media on it at all, the lies that were being told. So the narrative's out there and they just keep doing it. And even
you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you have the situation now look at what's happened in New York. I don't know if people are following this with Letitia James. So you have this bogus fraud trial against Trump, where they charging him $450 million. And this is how crazy New York is. By the way, if you do business in New York, get out of New York, please. It's so crazy that if you're trying to appeal it, you have to lay down the 450 before you're allowed to appeal it. I mean, this is mob tactic stuff. I don't know what the hell's going on in New York. Anyway, so then the report comes out. I think she tweeted it out like yesterday about there's this food company now that she's suing. Saying that they committed fraud against the people in New York.
Yep.
Because they said they were like a green food company, but they were quote unquote greenwashing. And for the uninitiated, greenwashing is when a company goes out and basically buys carbon credits. So say they buy quote unquote trees from another company, and that company goes out and plants trees to offset the carbon emissions of the company. That's how stupid carbon emissions and carbon capture credits are. It's really a dumb business, in my opinion. But that being said, so now she's taking this company into court in New York saying that, this is fraud against the consumer. They lied to the consumer saying they were a green company, and they weren't a green company. They were just greenwashing.
Right.
This is the kind of idiocy. Yes. And is the media going to question any of it? No. Are they going to question Kathy Hochul, who told business people in New York, you have nothing to worry about? This was just about Trump and his behavior. They're not going to question her. This thing is going to go very quietly under the radar, and you're going to have the Letitia James of the world just use their posts unconstitutionally, I might add.
Yep.
But then you have reporters like that going after James Comer when we have a legitimate investigation with real evidence.
What a big story that nobody's going to hear about. This is on her X account. I'm suing JBS Foods USA, the world's largest beef producer, for misleading the public about its environmental impact. The beef industry is one of the largest contributors to climate change, and JBS has falsely advertised its commitment to sustainability and endangered our planet. They're going after your food, everybody. How about now? Are you waking up now? They're going after your food. And she's probably got enough people there. It's almost like, hey, let's test the waters and see how much we can get away with in New York with judges and where we can what we can do here in Manhattan and everything that we can play out. And then if it goes well with Trump, hey, who else could we go after? They're going to go after your food. What's next? They're going after you personally. That's what's next.
Drew, you remember that movie Escape from New York with Kurt Russell?
Yeah, I do. It was great.
Letitia James and Kathy Hochul are going to turn that thing into Escape from New York. That's exactly what it's going to be, where everybody's leaving. Yeah. Because you cannot have a system of justice like this, and you can't have a press that just ignores the reality because they have an agenda. The more you do that, you end up diluting the people until it's too late. The biggest example of that is what's going on with the border and with this illegal immigrant crisis we have in the country. And it is a major crisis. But for years, the press was saying, if you support securing the border, you're a xenophobe, you're a racist. What do you mean Mexico's going to pay for it? He's a liar. He's trying to play you. Well, look at what's happened to New York City and so many of our major cities. Now you got black voters in these cities talking about this is nuts. There was a poll. I saw the poll last night. Drew, today, there was a poll that said 55% of the American people would support the military being used to deport illegal immigrants.
Wow.
For that number to be at 55%,
that's crazy.
A majority of black voters supported it. A majority of independent voters supported it. A majority of Hispanic voters supported it. The reason why is because reality of the crazy Democrat agenda has set in. And you did not have a press that was reporting the truth about what happens when you have sanctuary cities and all this other craziness.
Right.
And so you have a situation now where the reality of the Democrat agenda has now hit home. We're past the rhetoric. Now it's the reality. And the media is running for the hills, and so are the Democrats.
Yeah.
So this is what happens when you have a press that doesn't report the facts. They don't report who, what, when, where, why, and how, but they report based upon the agenda, because it ends up hurting the poorest among us every single time.
Well, before we go, I wonder what people are talking about on Capitol Hill about Mitch McConnell. Like, what are they saying? What are you hearing? And I wonder who's going to be minority leader now.
Well, first of all, I think what you have on the Hill is you have a mixture of people who are like, "Oh, we wish him well," to "Thank God he's gone." I mean, I'm just cut it straight to you. I think there's a renewed vigor among Senate Republicans. I think there's a real opportunity that, I was with Mike Lee and Rick Scott last night, I thought I would never hear the words of a conservative Senate, but a conservative Senate GOP, but that is definitely on the table. And look, I think especially with, some of the fights that occurred in the House, I think it's helped some of our Senate colleagues realize what's really possible. If you put your foot down with leadership and say, no, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we're not just going to follow you blindly into the abyss of deal making and bipartisanship. We're going to be leaders. And I think there's a real possibility in the Senate. I mean, specifically to Mitch McConnell, I mean, look, love him, hate him. He is part of the reason the Supreme Court is the way it is right now. Mitch, he could have gave in and not gone with following through on the quote unquote nuclear option. He could have done that. He could have played old world D.C. politics when it came to the court. If he famously told Harry Reid, don't blow up the filibuster, you're going to rue the day. And then when Harry Reid did it anyway, Mitch McConnell called Harry Reid's bluff and said, I told you. Yep. And then he did what he did, and that's how the court changed. So I think that although I've never been a huge fan of Mitch McConnell, we do owe him, I would say the country owes him a debt of gratitude with how he handled the Supreme Court. That being said, I think he's been around a little too long. I'm glad there's going to be new leadership in the Senate. It's time for a new phase in D.C., new leadership in D.C.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing who it's going to be. I have no idea, but we'll see. All right, Congressman, great to speak with you as always. All the best, and we'll see you next week, okay?
All right, see you, Drew.
All right, see you.